Good morning, everybody. So happy to be here with you this morning. A little earlier than we're used to. So let's start with meditation. Take your attention inside. And we'll start from the very bottom. Feel into the tip of your tailbone. Breathe into that energy center. And just feel. And this morning, we're just going to feel into I. And know that I, capital I, and Roman numeral 1 are the same. So what we're feeling into is 1, where I and 1 become the same in each energy center. So stay at the tip of your tailbone. And whatever you feel is totally wonderful. There's no way to do this wrong. And now drop your attention into the earth. Feel your connection to Mother Earth. We are made of the earth. Our bodies are made of the earth. And feel into that I oneness in the earth and in you at the same time. Feel the truth of it. And when you're ready, gently allow your attention to rise, and the energy follows your attention into your central channel and up to the energy center below your belly button. Yellow like the sun. Use your breath to allow the energy center to expand. Gently allow your attention to rise to the solar plexus, the space right under the front of your rib cage. Breathe into that space, the I oneness. And allow. Gently allow your attention to rise to your heart center in the middle of your chest. And feel into the most secret, sacred space in the center of your chest. Allow your attention, your intention, and your feeling of that I oneness to go gently and deeply into the heart center. Gently allow your attention to rise. The energy follows the attention into your throat center. Breathe into that space. If you feel any tension there, just swallow and let it go. Feel into the I oneness. Gently allow your attention to rise. You may feel in the space right where your hard palate in your mouth meets the soft palate, there is an energy center. Breathe into that space. Allow it to open, the I oneness. Gently allow your attention to rise to the third eye, directly above the space we just showed you, in the middle of your head, behind and between your eyebrows. Breathe into that space. Feel into the I oneness of that space. Gently allow your attention to rise to the top of your head. Feel the opening of the 1,000-petaled lotus on the top of your head. Breathe into that space, the I oneness. Gently, when you're ready, allow your attention to rise. The energy follows your attention to the top of your aura, where your fingers would touch if you made a circle around your halo. Now, with your breath, begin to unify the experience by breathing from the energy center at the top of your head to the energy center in the earth and back again. All the while feeling the I oneness. Now make the intention to hold this expanded awareness as you allow your focus to change, to come into the outer world with the inner world intact. Take your time. And gently allow your eyes to open, but stay in the sacred space. Welcome to Conversations with Annassa. How may we serve you today? We're so grateful, honored, and delighted to be with you. How may we serve? Today is Pi Day, 3.14, and all the numbers that follow.
Hi, this is Paul.
Morning. How are you, Paul?
All right. I wonder if I've been thinking about ecstasy and joy and the differences and the similarities of those two experiences, and I'm wondering if the guides could maybe channel that and enlighten me a little bit on that.
Well, it's interesting that you asked this question today because it's something that it's a topic of interest to us in the last week. So, ecstasy and joy. Well, let's say they're the same harmonic frequencies, and ecstasy is ecstasy is expanded joy. And ecstasy is totally available. And it happens when there's a ripeness in you that just opens. And suddenly it's there. And it's very interesting because there's a certain seductive quality, of course, to experiencing joy and ecstasy. And so it's important to know, not that we want to reduce the experience in any way, because joy, ecstasy, it's amazing. And there's a part of us that wants to stay there forever. And yet to understand that every state is waves coming through us. And so nothing is forever, but that access, once you've created a pathway, then it's more accessible than before that pathway. But understand that joy, ecstasy is not the point of practice any more than hell realms are the point of practice. They are all amazing feeling states, and viewed from the witness perspective of equanimity, there becomes an equality of perception where you begin to understand that the pain, the hell realms are in a way trustworthy because they provide you with information about yourself that needs to be resolved. However, there is no need to dwell in the hell realms. There's enough life experience, past, present, and future, for us to dissolve in there, that we will be sent. We will arrive there whenever there is an unfulfilled resonance within us that is stimulated. And then it's our job to say Ho'oponopono and understand that what we're doing is dumping the seaweed out of our canoe. When we go into a hell realm of negativity, we say Ho'oponopono to our highest self as we dump the seaweed of negativity out of our system. And saying Ho'oponopono is dumping the canoe. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. This is the ticket out of the hell realms. And the real place is equanimity. When we experience ecstasy, allow it. Allow it as long as it wants to stay. And there is a point at which it will become a part of the fabric of your knowing. It's like golden threads of golden light that permeate your being. But understand, this is what's meant by nirvana and samsara are the same. The place of truth is that secret place in the heart that is right smack in the middle of nirvana and samsara, that witnesses every experience. But yes, as you dump your canoe over and over of the seaweed with Ho'oponopono, you create space. You create space for the joy to come in. And then there is the allowing, and the joy just happens. And then the natural gratitude just flows. It's no longer a wish, but a reality. But not exactly the purpose of our practice. It's a new beginning. We hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. That helped a lot. More to think about. Love it.
Thank you for the question. It's really, really on topic. How may we serve further? So we'll say that this week a portal of joy opened, a portal of ecstatic experience for Rebecca. And so what we're conveying to you is lived through experience. How may we serve further? Mm-hmm.
I was reading Eckhart Tolle this morning. He talks about the two polarities of order and chaos. That when we have chaos, it is important to accept that feeling of discomfort in that moment. Is this similar to Annassa's view?
Well, order and chaos. Mm. They're a bit in the mental realm as we're seeing it. Let's see how we can understand this. You know, when as we are evolving, especially in the beginning, as we feel and feel deeply in ourselves, a lot of what comes forward is the pain body wanting to be resolved. And this feels like chaos because it's out of time. It's it's the past that has yet to be resolved in us that resonates with incoming waves of feeling that inform us about this unresolved patterns of the energy filters through the prism of our past experience and stimulates whatever history within us has created patterns of crystallized energy that we wish to dissolve through our practice. So as this energy flows into the crystallized patterns, we feel the it's as though the light refracts in the crystal to expose us to the feeling of unresolved experience. And so when we say Ho'oponopono, into that crystallization, through that crystallization to our highest self, we are melting that crystallization, releasing the trapped energy in that experience. And as that trapped energy becomes available, our inner flow and access to our highest self increases. So that refraction, as we experience the light hitting the crystallization and the emotional experience of chaos, is an integral part of our practice. And then as the flow reasserts itself, we experience it as a new order. We could say it like that. So the flow of the resolution of the crystallization, we could say, because that flow has a clarity in the dissolving of the crystallization of that particular pattern, it comes into divine order. We could say that. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further? Yes.
So you mentioned practice. What is our practice and the purpose of our practice?
So we'll start with the purpose of our practice, because that's the most important thing. Because if you don't know where you're aiming, how are you going to get there? So you have to have the intention. Intention is how we begin our practice, and the intention is union with our divinity. This oneness, this I, capital I, one, is our highest self, or God, God realization in us. God realization does not happen outside of us. It is in us. And it is union with that within us that is the divine source of everything that is. And so the purpose of practice is union, because there is only one. And whether we realize that in ourselves or not, that doesn't change the reality that there is one source, and that source is totally available to us as we breathe through these crystallized patterns and bring them into flow. And that over time releases us into the flow of the divine I One, which is our source. And the reason that many, many religions point us away from the I is because that's how we get there. And in our current state of reality, most religions are about controlling people to keep them in line. So that they can't access this I oneness, which gives one a sense of independence, a sense of wholeness that knows the truth and can't be manipulated into behaving certain ways because of needing external feedback to feel their aliveness. And so instead of having our lives geared to alignment with the external demands on us, we have our attention and intention on our internal alignment. And these things ideally would be the same. And that's what fifth dimensional living is when the internal alignment and the external alignment become the same, so that the whole is just again, the whole is the internal and external reality of everyone merging into the highest best for all of us. That is fifth dimensional living. That's where we're headed. And the way to get there is to align on the inside. And as our alignment on the inside becomes more and more accessible, and more the who we are that we breathe into every day, then our knowing of how to be in the external informs us, and there's no longer conflict. And so any conflict that we run into, we immediately, as we would say ho'oponopono on the inside, to any chaotic pattern that is light refracting against the prism of unresolved tension, that same thing appears externally when we are in a state of alignment, and we can do the same thing. We can breathe into that crystallized pattern of experience, resolve it within ourselves, and the way we do that with others is to go to the Annassa temple. When we have conflict with another that we cannot speak because the realm of third dimensional communication has failed, then we go to the Annassa temple. And we don't go into the temple until we have reached clarity about what message we want to deliver from our highest self to another person or situation. We sit with the contrast that we are experiencing. We'll call the pattern of disharmony between us and another. We'll call that contrast, because we don't want to apply a judgment of higher or lower. It's not the reality. It's just again, it's contrast. And so when we experience contrast with another, we sit with ourselves and we go into the highest we can, and we compose a message to the other of what we truly want to say. And what we want to say contains within it the vision of the resolution of this contrast that we have had in our inner as we release the contrast within ourselves. What to say to that person in the Annassa temple becomes clear. And from that clarity, we have 2 or 3 lines that we want to deliver from our highest self to the highest self of the other, the perceived other. And then we go to the Annassa temple. And once we are there in the sacred space of Annassa, so all is protected and all is in the highest best. In that sacred space, we call the highest emanation of the other, perceived other, into the space. And we say to that person our 2 or 3 lines of information that we wish to give them to create alignment with the whole. We wait until that information has been received by the highest of the perceived other. And when that delivery is complete, we allow them to go. And we return from the Annassa temple or we change our focus from the Annassa temple back to whatever is in front of us. So these are the 2 practices: how to resolve the crystallization within ourselves and how to resolve the contrast between ourselves and the outer. We hope that answers your question.
There's a follow-up that just says perceived other with a question mark.
We're saying perceived other because if there's only one, then there is perceived other. And we're going to leave it like that because it's the truth. And any attempt to reduce that understanding is trying to fit 5th dimensional reality into 3rd dimensional language. And so we can only point by saying perceived other, which as you sit with that concept will allow you to expand your perception about what a human being is. We are truly beings of light. And light doesn't have any boundaries except crystallization. And even as we practice, we see that crystallization is dissolvable by the light. So as light merges with itself, what is there that's not light? What is there that's separate? This is why we say perceived other. But as you feel into that perceived other, the truth of that, then your experience changes as you really, really feel into that. And this is what being and becoming, this is what those words mean, is feeling into ourselves as pure light, pure beingness. So there's a lot coming through Rebecca today, and she's not able to always stabilize her body in the moment. So that's what you're seeing with these flickerings and They're called kriyas. As energy comes through and hits as yet to be dissolved crystallization, it will bounce off, it will refract away, and may cause a physical movement. This is nothing to worry about. It's the crystallization dissolving. So when this arises in you, have no fear. It's the gift of awareness making itself known. And understand you're not dependent on any transmission from Annassa. This is just a gift of energy to speed your progress. It has nothing to do with dependence. You will attract that energy as you do your work deeper and deeper. And it doesn't really matter what form or formlessness teachers take, but it does matter that you understand that everything received is about this discovery of self-union, which comes through. There is this space in the heart that is so tender that we will do almost anything to not go there. And when that place begins to reveal itself, understand that you use your intention to create a doorway, to drop yourself into that space. And in that space, it's beyond language. So there's something about Pi Day and infinity that's coming into congruence in the moment. How may we serve further? So we knew we were going through a change. It's been happening for a number of days. And Rebecca was like, do you really want to talk this morning? I'm not sure what's going to come out. We were like, don't worry. This is important. So we are sharing the change that's coming through.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Told you he can unmute himself.
Drew, please unmute yourself. Come on in.
Good morning. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Drew.
So I would like to ask about taking time to sit quietly with maybe an answer that has come up, or just having asked the question and waiting for that right moment. I guess just sitting with and waiting for an answer.
Well, we're glad for this question. Can everybody hear the question about? Okay, good. So, sitting and waiting for an answer. So when you sit and wait for an answer, it almost never comes. Almost never. When the answer comes is when you least expect it. You know, folding laundry, doing the dishes, sweeping the floor. When our mind is free and we are doing mundane tasks, this is when answers come. They come in their own time. We don't have any control. We only have control over the questions. And very often when the answers arise, there is a synchronicity of experience that happens that validates the answer, which is how you know that it's actually a communication rather than something from your mind. You also can tell that it's a communication because there is a feeling of knowing that is connected to our capacity to know the truth. We have a visceral capacity to know truth. And because we have that and we recognize it, that's why everybody's here right now. It's that capacity to recognize truth that draws you into something. As you refine and refine that capacity to feel the truth, then the knowingness of being becomes quite trustworthy. And there's also reality checks that tell us when we have gotten confused about truth and not truth. So paying attention to all realms of feedback is important. At the same time, there's so much stimulating feedback in our environment that there is no benefit to, there's so much stimulus in every moment if we make ourselves available to it, that discrimination is required in terms of what we let to just pass through us and what we resonate with. Some of it we have a choice about. What we don't have a choice about is this, especially the frequencies that draw us into the unresolved patterns within ourselves, that the resolution of those provide the energy for our further growth as the flow inside us increases. We sort of forgot the question. Have we answered it yet?
Yeah, yes.
Did it bring up more questions?
No, not really. It's just, I think that that validation that sometimes we need to sit quietly. And I don't know, for me, that the word is ponder, but to just let it soak in, immerse ourselves in it, and let that truth arise. I don't know if that's the right wording that I want, but that seems to that fullness of an answer.
Well, yes. And there's something we want to take away. Take away is not the word. There's something we want to examine further, and that's the word ponder. Because ponder, at least for us, takes us into the intellectual. And there is a place for that. But that we can wander around between our ears forever and certainly not come to an answer. And so, yes, what you were saying about the depth of taking into feeling, experiencing, and allowing rather than, having it bouncing back and forth up here. So there's a way, and understand that we've been trained that this is primary. But as far as we're experiencing at this time, human beings have this brain, and then there's this brain of the heart, which is another brain. And when this energy comes down and is absorbed into the heart and then comes back up, there's a different kind of awareness. And then there's a third brain in the gut. And that also informs us most of us, outside of our awareness. And it regulates our hormones, which regulates our everything. And so a lot of our, we don't know how to say this, unawareness of our automatic physiology. This happens in a part of us that we normally don't have access to. But as our attention deepens and our flow of access deepens in our entire being, then this physiology begins to merge with the heart awareness, with the mind awareness. And when all three are in sync, that's when we begin to have experience of the whole. We're checking the truth of that statement. It's actually more than that, but there is no language for it.
That describes, I think, what the process that I try and go through in allowing those three separate to align.
The thing is that separate is not true.
Right.
All three are continuously, it's like a Venn diagram, except the Venn diagram is not linear because there's not exactly a higher and a lower. It's
Right.
It's not separate like that. Our linear mind would very much like to, because it likes to define and limit, and our beingness is completely disrespectful of any boundaries. We say that in jest. It's not really disrespectful. It's just because it precedes any boundaries, and it also is indestructible. This part of us cannot be harmed. It's what's alive about us, and it was here before this body, and it will be here after this body. But it is unbounded. To say but is not really true. We'll just say it is unbounded. And it is at the same time the alignment that we are seeking. And this is why we say perceived other, because unbounded is unbounded. But there is peace at the same time. So it's not as though we are opening to unbounded chaos exactly. How may we serve further? This is kind of an expansive morning. Yes, Suzanne. Please unmute yourself.
I think I'm unmuted now.
There you go. Yes.
This is going back a little bit. And I
Oh, we lost you again.
Oh, hold on.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Ready? Go ahead, speak.
All right. Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes.
This is going back a little bit. I mean, I really like where we are right now, but I want to know a little bit about the crystallization of light.
The crystallization of what was the last word? Light. Okay, we'll give you an example. When you're a child, before language, you still have awareness of yourself as a light being, as an unbounded being. Especially in the first, I don't know, it depends. It's different for every baby. But if they're allowed to be in that in-between space without being forced into present reality, for some months, then it happens very gently that they become externally rotated. We'll say that their attention becomes outside instead of just this open field. And so when a happy baby is born, it doesn't have any boundaries. You notice it doesn't even know, like it can scratch its face and not have any idea that doesn't know it has a body. And so this whole being in the body thing is like, it takes a while. And we call that, meeting milestones. But what that is a being that doesn't know it's a body coming into body. So you're witnessing that. And as that coming into body happens, there is a crystallization that takes place of the light so that the being is held in body, in a way. I mean, the being is already held in body. It's not like that. It's not that the being is choosing between staying and leaving. It's not that. It's that the being is unbounded and has to come into the awareness of the physical to inhabit the body in a anyway, there's a kind of reduction that happens and an external rotation of attention from the inner to the outer as the being begins to learn. And most of the learning is through the senses from the peers and elders around the being as it comes into the awareness. And there's the awareness of body as you get the cause and effect when you scratch yourself and understand that this limb is you. And that takes a while for a body in the beginning, for a child. And then there is the experience of discomfort and the crying and the feedback of comfort and the crying, the discomfort and the crying and the feedback of comfort. There's that. And when there begins to be incongruity between the feedback and the discomfort, then the discomfort crystallizes because the being has no capacity to there's no discrimination, there's no anything, there's just a crystallization of a pattern that the discomfort was not met with comfort. And so that creates a pattern that if, when that pathway is repeated a number of times, then the crystallization of, we want to use the word disappointment, but that's not exactly how it is for that being. It's just like, oh, the cry doesn't elicit comfort. And so that creates a pattern that becomes crystallized. And that happens over and over as we encounter our environment and our expectation of our discomfort being met by comfort from the outside. When that doesn't happen, it sets up another pattern of crystallization in a different place in us. And these things get more sophisticated as we get more sophisticated. And so our task, does that explain the crystallization?
Yes, it helps a lot.
And so especially as a young being, we don't have any capacity to filter any of this. We just are. And so all these crystallized patterns happen and we can say our discomfort is ego. We can call it that. Ego is our discomfort recognition mechanism. And so there's nothing wrong with ego from that perspective. It's us seeking comfort. And that's not wrong. That's how we're made. And so what we like to say is that in this ego pointing out our discomfort, that points out our crystallization.
Very interesting.
In real time. That discomfort is a reflection of the refraction of light against the hardened experience of disappointment. We'll use that word, although we're using it to cover a broad spectrum of experience. But in the final analysis, it's our cry not being met with comfort in the most simplistic way. And so when we turn around, when we refocus ourselves on resolving those crystallized patterns, then we get back the energy that is stored in those crystallized patterns, and they can be any emotion. They're any experience where we didn't get what we wanted, which we always, and this is the thing about ego, we always experience when we don't get what we want as we're not getting what we need.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the tricky point. That's where the ego becomes a question has to be asked. Is this what's wanted or what's needed? And we ask that question in two directions as adults, both of ourselves and of what's being asked of us from the outside.
Right.
And so that's always a good question to pose to oneself. Does that answer your question, Suzanne?
Yes. Very much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. So we just noticed the time is 11:25, and we really want to meditate with you again this morning because there's so much available. So we're just going to make this transmission and sit with it in the I, Roman numeral 1, awareness space, however that feels right to approach in you. And we will just be available. And we'll probably go for 10 minutes or so. So if you can stay, please do. And if not, it's fine. So we'll begin now. Thank you so much. It is the quality of your inquiry that brings forth from us any explanation. We are so, so grateful to be with you. Thank you so much. Till Wednesday. Bye for now.